Good morning, everybody. Hi, it's Tracy Prachu, and I am here with Trent Cotney from Cotney Attorneys and Consultants. And we're so excited to have him come and talk to us about the economic situation that we're all facing with material and rising costs. So as we go through Trent's presentation today, please feel free to put your questions in the Q&A box and we will get to them. And we are recording this as well, so if you need to circle back after it's edited and watch it again, you'll be able to do that on our YouTube channel. And I am going to get out of the way and hand this over to Trent because I know he's got so much great information for us. So thanks, Trent.
Welcome. Great. Thank you, Tracy. It's always a pleasure to be able to talk to you guys. And really what I want to do, is act as a resource for you to answer any questions that you've got. So I'm real good at monitoring questions as they come through. We're going to talk about a bunch of different things today. And look, this is a topic that I've had to deal with consistently for 75, 85% of my day for the past 2 months. And I am constantly learning and figuring out how to adapt and figure out how to negotiate better, how to deal with these issues better. After this presentation, I have 3 calls set up with roofing contractors to try to figure out how to get them out of tight spots. So what I wanted to do is really spend the time today to kind of help educate you on the issues and give you some real world examples of how I have successfully been able to defeat some of these problems. So what I want to start off with though is, get my PowerPoint working here. You guys should know me, I'm general counsel for ARCAL, but I'm also GC for NRCA in Western states. Roofing is in my blood. My grandfather's a roofer. I live and breathe it. That's what our group does. So what I want to start off with, though, is the biggest question that I am getting now, not just from ARCAL members, but also just roofing contractors in general is, Trent, what do I do if I have already signed a contract? Okay, and I'm not talking about entering a new contract because I know there are contract provisions that can deal with that. Trent, what do I do if I am in a contract and I've got, a 4-month lead time, or I just got notification of a $90,000 price increase? Okay, how do I deal with that? And what I tried to do as this event started, unfolding, I'm a big believer in process. And I found that if I created this process, that it would maximize the chance for the customer to succeed in obtaining the relief that he or she wants, okay? So what I'm gonna do is talk to you about the process, and then I'm going to drill down into the steps and tell you exactly how to do it, okay? The first thing that is critical that you do, and this is regardless of whether or not you are, residential or commercial contractor, is you've got to set the stage with your customer, okay? Now, you and I all know about the material issue, right? We've lived it and we've breathed it, and it has been, something that we've had to deal with, right? Never experienced anything before like this. Last time we had this kind of volatility with materials, I'd say it's probably World War II. So this is something completely new for us in modern roofing. And what I like to do is I like to be able to carry through the great resources that your association has, great resources that other industry affiliates and partners have out there. And we're going to talk about those resources. We're going to talk about how to use them effectively. Okay, so the first one is set the stage. Second part is you want to identify the key contract provisions in your existing contract, okay? So I'll use a little prop here. So I got contract right here. What I want you to do is I want you to go through with a highlighter and highlight anything and everything that you could potentially use to your advantage in trying to get additional time or additional money. And we're going to talk about a lot of those provisions. We're going to talk about force majeure, acts of God. We're going to talk about delay claims and how to successfully use them. We're going to talk about payment provisions and what you might see there. But what I want you to do is find anything and everything that gives you any kind of argument, okay? And the reason why I want you to do that is because you've got to come from a position of strength. Let me take a step back, okay? The worst thing that I have seen roofing contractors do is as soon as they get that notification from the manufacturer that their prices have gone up 100%, to pick up the phone immediately to their customer and they say, hey, I'm going to need another $150,000. Okay. That is not negotiating. That is falling on your sword. Okay. I don't ever fall on my sword. Doesn't matter if I'm in litigation, if it's if I'm defending against, an OSHA claim, doesn't matter if it's a contractual issue, whatever it is, you must always come from a position of strength. So in order to do that, what you need to be able to do is identify the key contract provisions that can help you, okay? Because part 3 comes into play, and that's submitting a change order or a claim pursuant to whatever your contractual process is. Now, if you're a residential contractor, you're probably saying, Trent, I don't have a process. I don't have that in my contract. Well, you still got to give something over to the owner, right? And what I want you to do in submitting that change order or that claim or that request, whatever it is I want you to set that stage, say this is an unforeseen event. We never knew this was going to happen. It's impossible to perform under these circumstances. Here are the key contract provisions that I think allows me to receive the relief that I'm requesting. And then you submit that change order. Okay. And what I like to do, and I'm usually always behind the scenes because again, nobody likes lawyers, right? So last thing I want to do is make things worse by appearing. The only time I appear is if they've lawyered up or you need a real heavy hand. But usually I'm ghostwriting stuff behind the scenes. So what I do in this change order is I advocate, right? And historically, roofing contractors are horrible at advocating. I've got a call here in 3 hours, and that call is with a contractor that's seeking $90,000. So I walked him through all the contract provisions that we can use, and he gave me a copy of his change order. The change order is just simply the price increase. There's no advocacy in there. Okay. What would I do if I was submitting that change order? I would set the stage. I would say, because of this materials crisis, we've never seen this before, is absolutely horrific. Pursuant to section so-and-so and so-and-so, I'm entitled to additional price increase. As a result, here's the price breakout. I look forward to hearing your response. Okay. So after you submitted that change order, then you pick up the phone and you say, hey, Mr. Customer, I just want to let you know that I had to submit a change order here, but I get that you're in the same spot that I'm in, right? And what I want to do is I want to figure out how you and I can work together to get this project done, right? And a lot of times what happens is you end up, splitting the difference or, taking a slight discount off or offering something else, offering another year worth of workmanship warranty, offering a maintenance plan, right? Maintenance plans are guaranteed money because you're on that project and you're going to get the re-roof. So think about that. Think about upgrades. Think about additional consideration that you can offer to help justify that pay increase if they're not just going to stroke a check to you. Okay. So this is going to set the stage for what I'm going to talk about in the next 45 minutes. Okay. We're going to talk about setting the stage, identifying key contract provisions, submitting a change order, and negotiating. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about the issues. Everybody blames COVID-19. They say, oh, COVID-19 caused this. No, it didn't. It's a part of it, but it didn't cause it, okay? There's about 20 different reasons that we are where we are today. The biggest reason is just-in-time inventory, okay? And look, I'm a business owner just like you guys are, right? I was always told, coming up that, inventory kills. You don't want a lot of inventory on hand because that's cash, right? So the problem is that manufacturers would keep their raw materials to a minimum, just for products that were needed because they knew that they had a supply chain that would provide that material when needed. Same with distribution, same with contractors. Now, when there is a disruption in that, it creates a tidal wave of disruption. So the biggest, if I'm looking at this as like a pie chart, I'd say the biggest has to do with our inventory process to begin with and our distribution, okay? So from a distribution standpoint, we don't have enough truckers, okay? One of the big issues that I've heard throughout the Seattle area, also throughout Washington and then going down in Oregon as well, is lack of truckers, okay? You just don't have enough. And when there aren't enough truckers around to distribute the materials aren't getting distributed appropriately. Our rail system is outdated. We don't have enough ships to carry the stuff that needs. We don't have enough shipping containers to haul the stuff that is needed. Okay. What else? We had refinery shutdowns. We had COVID-19. That border was closed just right up north from you for a very long time, which prevented lumber and a lot of other things from getting here as easy as it could. We've had tariffs. We've had, a ton of really bad storms last year that already increased demand dramatically. So we've got crazy demand and no supply, and that's where we are. Okay. Now you're going to hear me say this. Part of this webinar today is me giving you the economic outlook. And we're very fortunate here. I've got Craig Bright that I work with on a national level for lobbying. We've got a lot of great people on the consulting side that give me a lot of information that I need to do my job. And what I am consistently hearing from every manufacturer out there nationwide and internationally, and from every person I've talked to that's in the know, is that this is here to stay till second quarter 2022. And it's going to get worse. Okay, I'll say it again, it's going to get worse. Why is it going to get worse? It's going to get worse because we have major storms that are going to hit. Okay, we've got fires. Okay, so between the fires and the natural disasters, that is going to continue to put strain on that supply. So you're probably saying to yourself, Trent, I love you, man, but I'm in Washington. If a storm hits Florida, why does it affect me? It affects you because those materials have to come from somewhere. Once they are drained from the local areas and the regional areas, guess where they're going to pull from? Wherever there's availability. Okay, so those shingles, those fasteners, those plates, that membrane, we live in a global environment. So you are competing not just with your local contractors, but with everybody in the US and beyond. Recognize that. Okay, so that's why I say I don't think we've hit the worst of it yet. I think it's really going to hit probably in fall. That's what I would anticipate right now. And you need to dig your trench. Okay, not only do you need to dig your trench, you need to fix your bayonets because it's going to be a long haul. Okay, and again, I hope I'm wrong. I'd love to be wrong, but that's not what I'm hearing. So let me tell you, so we're still on the set the stage. Okay, and I just gave you a lot of reasons. Those same reasons you need to talk to your customer about. They need to understand this, but they don't just need to rely on you. Okay, one of the things that has come out of this thing that's actually been good is distribution and manufacturers are really trying to work to a certain extent with contractors, a lot more than in the past that I've seen. And what I've liked about it is I can lean on them occasionally. So let's say you're on a project with a significant lead time, right? And you just can't get the materials and you've talked to your local sales rep, your tech reps, whatever it might be, and you're not getting anywhere. Okay. I've called the people that I know on the corporate level and said, hey, I'll give you a great example. Okay. I had a contractor on a federal job and they're in a tight spot. Okay. They've got to get this project done. They were told that materials wouldn't be available for 4 to 6 months. The contractor did everything they could from a self-help standpoint. They talked to their, tech reps, sales reps, anybody, the credit manager, anybody they could on both distribution and the manufacturer to get the stuff, but could not get it. So I called a friend of mine that I know that's in corporate that I see at some of the events, and I said, hey, can you help me? Here's what's going on. I'm begging you, help my guys, or something you can do. And a couple of days later, I get a phone call and they said, Trent, I can't get you the whole order. I can get you 20%. And I said, well, thank you. Thank you so much. That's just something. But can you tell me when is the rest of the stuff going to come? And I said, look, I need you to be honest with me. And he said, Trent, you and I will be opening Christmas presents by the time he gets the rest of it. And I said, thank you. Thank you. I just needed to know that, right? Because if I know that, I can do something about it. So right now, over the last couple of weeks, what we've been doing is getting really creative with the owner and the design professionals to try to rephase the work. Okay. What I'm trying to do right now, and I've kind of leaned on the consulting side of this company to help me out with some of this stuff, but we're looking at the critical path and we're trying to figure out, are there other trades that could potentially go in certain places and decrease the amount of delay? Okay, is there ways that the roofing contractor can rephase portions of its work to accommodate the materials it's going to get and lessen that time. So over the past couple of weeks, we've been able to shrink the amount of delay from 4 to 6 months to about 2.5 months. Okay, it's not perfect, but hey, it's something, right? So, and we're still working on it. We're trying to figure out, you know, everybody talks about value engineering, and that's kind of an oxymoron. Well, this is kind of the reverse side of that coin. You know, you're trying to figure out how to rephase to decrease delay. So with setting the stage, what I like to do is I like to use industry references, right? And I got to tell you, you know, Tracy and your association does a great job in getting information out. I just saw about that update from L&I. I get those emails and I take a look at it. That's a great point of reference that you can use stuff, you know. But there's also national news. So what I found interesting about this is that the Biden administration put together a task force and on this materials issue as it relates to construction. Now, that tells me something, and it should tell you something as well. It means that the government has no idea how to fix this issue, but they created a task force to make it look like they were doing something. Anytime you see a task force, that's really what it is they don't know what the answer is to but they want to look like they're doing something. So the good news is that you can use that to your advantage. You can say, look, this is a national issue. Biden has created a task force to deal with it. It's not just us. And I put one of the links here that you can use, okay? Now, here's something that I want to hit home to you guys. And this is something that I realized is you got to get creative. And what I've done is I've taught, you know, occasionally manufacturers. I was just on the phone with a major manufacturer that you would know immediately if I said it. And they were calling me to say, how can we help our contractors? And I said, what I need you to do is instead of putting out, you know, dumb A notices that say the prices have increased by 20%, I need you to give me some great language in there that I can use, track in their contract, attach it to a change order, and submit it upstream. And they said, well, Trent, what do you mean? And I said, well, let me give you an example, okay? If you are, and pay it, this is, trust me, if you're watching this, this is a key point, okay? If you've got a subcontract, right, for roofing, let's say you got a prime contractor ahead of you and an owner, if you look in that, oftentimes there may be a force majeure clause, there may be an act of God clause that will say, hey, you know, if you have a issue with something that makes it impossible for you to perform or an unforeseen event, okay, then what you can do is potentially request relief. So wouldn't it be great if distribution and manufacturer could pretty much track that language for you along with their price increase? And they said, oh, okay, well, yeah, of course I can do that. I can say this is unforeseeable. Of course it is. I was like, yeah, I just need you to say it, you know? So that has helped me out tremendously because then the customer doesn't have to just rely on you. They're reading the stuff from the national manufacturer that says the same exact thing that tracks the contract language, pretty much, right? I'm looking for unforeseeable, unforeseen, an act of God, you know, unprecedented. That's the kind of language I want. I don't just want numbers. See, manufacturer and distribution are as guilty as contractors are when they're submitting change orders because all they're doing is pushing numbers. They're not advocating, right? We need to fly in formation here because if everyone is aligned, I stand a much better chance of being able to convince that customer to come off center, okay? And you guys will hear me say this over and over and over again, okay? Happy customer equals happy contractor. That's all you need to remember, okay? It's real easy to point fingers at everybody, and trust me, there's plenty of blame to go around, but that doesn't solve the problem, right? Your problem is the customer. You keep the customer happy, then you're good to go, okay? So setting the stage, that's what I mean by setting the stage. Don't just say, oh, it's COVID-19, because that's not a good excuse. That doesn't really explain what happened, and it doesn't explain the gravity of the situation. So look for that tie through, okay, because you're going to use it as part of your change order process. Does that make sense? Okay, I'm seeing a lot of virtual head nods. Okay, so yeah, don't forget, ask questions if you got them. Now we're going to part 2, which is looking in your contract, okay? If you are a residential contractor, you know, all the residential contracts I prepare, one side is a proposal, the reverse side is terms and conditions, right? That's what it is. But even in those terms and conditions, I put a lot of good stuff in there, right? So there may be something in there that you can use. If you can't, then you may still have access to these arguments, and I'll get to that, okay? So we're going to talk about force majeure. We're going to talk about, certain provisions that can help you with pricing. We're going to talk about change order and claims provisions, delays, and I'll say it again, happy customer, happy contractor. That's the key thing, okay? If your customer is happy, that's all that matters, okay? There's plenty of time to, air grievances at a later date, but keep that customer happy. So force majeure, we'll take a water break here. Force majeure is fancy legal language for act of God. And what it means is there an event that occurred, like a hurricane, a war, strike, earthquake, all that kind of stuff? Clearly, some of those may affect you, some of them will never affect you. But the idea behind it is there an event that's beyond your reasonable control? Because if there is, then you may have some relief, okay? Now, put a classic provision in here. So if you had a contract that was executed last year or even before COVID-19, you will see this kind of language, okay? And it lists, riots, revolutions, strikes, but there's usually a catch-all or other factors beyond the reasonable control of a party, okay? I would argue that this is beyond a reasonable control of a party. Now, one thing that you want to watch out for is the longer this event goes on, the less likely it is that you're going to be able to use this as a get-out-of-jail-free card, okay? Not that it is, but it gives you an argument. So if you're entering contracts now and you're not taking into account price increases and material volatility, shame on you, right? That there's no magic fairy dust that I can sprinkle on contracts now. I mean, I can, but at the end of the day, you guys get what I'm saying. You need to take the time to add stuff into your contracts now because I don't know whether or not you'll be able to use it. So and you guys can use all these contract provisions, right? So here's a revised force majeure. And originally I developed this during COVID-19 because I wanted to include, local, state, and federal state of emergencies. I wanted to include pandemics, all that kind of stuff. But the other thing that I did is I added material or equipment unavailability, okay? That's a good thing because if you have that language in your force majeure clause, you got something to hang your hat on, right? So read your act of God clause, read it carefully, okay? So now you're probably saying to yourself, Trent, this is great. Thank you for this brilliant legal advice. But at the end of the day, I don't have a force majeure provision in my contract. What do I do? Well, there's good news, okay? Under the common law, it's often recognized that if a contract becomes impossible to perform, or if the purpose of the contract is frustrated by some unforeseen event, then you may be entitled to relief. So even if you don't have a contract provision, you may still have a legal basis to seek a change or make a claim. Okay, again, this is where setting the stage and getting that distribution and manufacturer pull through really comes in handy, okay? Every project is unique. Every project has its own set of circumstances, but again, this is something that at least puts doubt in the mind of your customer as far as whether or not they're going to approve your claim, okay? So that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for them to come off of center so that at worst I can negotiate. Let's talk about price quotes. Okay, many of you have received price quotes. When you signed a job, the price quote gave you specific prices for certain material line items, okay? And guess what? Those prices have changed. And I get a lot of irate roofing contractors that call me and they say, hey, this so-and-so manufacturer or so-and-so distribution, they changed the prices. And I said, yes, I understand that. Did you read your credit application? Okay, did you read your applicator agreement? Because if you do, in there it says a quote is a quote, okay? So you need to understand, yes, you can be angry. Is it right? No, not necessarily, but that doesn't solve your problem. So again, what I want to do is I want to address this with the customer, okay? And I want to try to use certain contractual mechanisms to get that extra price paid for. You can use that act of God provision like we talked about. You can look for traditional change orders. Always submit that, okay? There's a provision that I'm about to give you, if you don't already have it, the price acceleration provision. that is great. It gives you access to additional money if prices increase. And we'll talk about how you can use that during negotiations. The one thing that I also want to hit home to you, and this is important for residential contractors, is if you have certain things that you know are a commodity, like in roofing, like you're going to do a lot of it, deck replacement, soffit, gutter, flashing penetrations, okay? Do it as a cost plus line item. Say, okay, here is the price, but for every piece of plywood I have to replace, it's the cost of materials at this labor rate plus burden, whatever, okay? Be careful about specifically identifying the cost of the material. I review these time and materials type pricing add-ons all the time, and a lot of times you're undercutting yourself. I saw $30 a sheet of plywood. That most places it wasn't that. It was a lot more than that. I mean, it's gone down some, but it may go up again. So I like to have the material portion as open-ended. It's a cost plus labor rate plus burden, okay, equals X, okay? Carve out what you can. Now, I've heard some advice by other lawyers that what you want to do is you want to say this price is good for 30 days. That is horrific advice. Don't do that, okay? Because these prices are here today, gone today, okay? I literally got from one manufacturer notification of 100% price increase effective immediately. So if you've locked in your pricing for 30 days, you're screwed. You cannot do that anymore. Don't do that, okay? What I like to do instead is I like to use it as a sales tool, okay? Again, everybody hates lawyers, I get it, right? I do too, so I understand. But this is a great way where you can use this to close deals. And let me tell you how, right? It's a great pressure technique. You go in front of a customer and you say, look, here's my proposal. I wanted to give it to you today. And I just want to kind of explain to you, let me know, here's the system that you're going to get. It's a top tier system. Here's the warranty. I can give you a standard 2-year workmanship, or I've got an NDL package I can give you. It's going to be an upgrade. You go through all the mumbo jumbo the salesperson normally does, right? But then you say, look, I need to let you know that we are currently experiencing in construction this unforeseen event that we've never seen before. Here's some literature on it. Here's some links. I can't guarantee this beyond today. Okay. And not only can I not guarantee it beyond today, but I can't guarantee that you're even going to be able to get the material in time. So look, I know you want to shop this. I know you want to get other bids. I don't blame you. I'm just being honest with you that if you can't sign today, I can't order today. And I'm trying to lock this pricing in for you now. Pretty good sales tool, right? So that's how I would look at it is say, look, we could purchase it now and let's store it. Let's store the material. Now, keep in mind, some materials have shelf lives, right? So you don't want to have a 6-month material that you keep for a year, but store them in your warehouse, store them in the yard, store them on the job. Okay, I've negotiated with owners to split the cost of off-site storage. Okay, the goal is have them in hand, because you don't want to be that contractor that's halfway through a job and you've got half a roof complete and you can't get the material to do the rest of the roof. Okay, that's not a good feeling, and it's a lot of liability, right? So think about that. Think about pre-purchasing materials, DPOs, direct purchase orders. Shift that burden straight to the owner. Say, look, because of these issues, I'm taking materials out of my contract. You guys order it direct. It's all you. Okay. Yeah, some benefit to that, right? Tell them, look, don't trust me. We'll do a joint payee check. We'll make sure it runs through. Let's just get those materials at hand, because I don't want to leave you hanging, because I can't guarantee I'm going to get this stuff. Okay. Again, it's about being creative. You got to be able to combine the legal with the business and the customer service. This is a unique situation. Here's a standard price acceleration provision. There are 3 parts to this provision. I originally developed this provision in 2004 when Florida got hit by 4 or 5 hurricanes in a row, and you could not get plywood or shingles or fasteners or anything. So what the idea behind it is, if there's an increase in any material line item by more than a certain percentage, and I got 5% in here, then you're entitled to additional compensation. Okay. Second part is you've got to prove it, right? You got to be able to show those costs. Okay. Which makes sense. That's just fair, okay? The third part is you can terminate the contract if it's more than 10%. Now, I'll be honest with you, that third sentence I don't normally include, okay? Unless it's a condo association, because a lot of times I can get them to sign pretty much anything I put in front of them. But that third sentence, I would not use it unless you are confident with your negotiating capability. So what happens if you have an existing contract and you don't have this contract provision in there? As you're negotiating, you need to say, look, not only do we need to deal with this present issue, but let's figure out how the rest of this project is going to go, okay? What I think is fair is I'll eat up to 15%, but anything over that, you got to help me cover, okay? And then if that's the case, instead of the 5%, put 15% in there, you're good to go, okay? So again, it's about being creative. And, you know, the bulk of what I have been doing behind the scenes is advocating the same way that I'm talking to you guys, ghostwriting stuff for clients, you know, combining that business and legal side of things to get the relief that's needed, right? And this is not something that you really don't want to go to court over this, because you're just throwing good money after bad. The goal is to try to figure out how to keep that customer happy. Any questions so far? Okay, you guys can ask. I'll take a water break just in case you want to type something. All right. Managing lead times. This has been a bigger issue in a lot of cases than the price increases, right? The lead times are just killing contractors because you can't get the material that you need to do the job. And if you're doing schoolwork or work that requires that it be done over the summer or sooner rather than later, you're in a real tough spot, right? And that's the bulk of what I've had to kind of deal with from a negotiating standpoint, is how to get out of this stuff. So the other thing that you need to understand is this is pretty much throughout all manufacturers. And that's what I've heard from almost everybody. It's not that manufacturer A can't get you this stuff. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all the way down the alphabet can't get it to you, okay? So that's a good thing for you in that you can show it's not just this, it's not just the system that I suggested, it's everything, right? So how do you deal with it from the customer? Now, the first thing that you need to understand is that your contract is fine. You know, if it's your contract, if it's the one, you know, you've drafted or had drafted, it's great. But really, customer service is why you're listening to me now, okay? If you didn't have good customer services, you wouldn't be in roofing, right? You'd be doing something else, because you got to have good customer service in order to have a good business. So the contract is where you go when customer service doesn't work. What I like to do in contracts is I like to look for provisions that are going to help me navigate these issues. So I look for things like material unavailability provisions, delay provisions, all that kind of stuff, okay? Once I've identified whatever that is, I submit a change order for a time extension. And then what I do is I look to see if there's ways that I can modify or adjust the schedule to accommodate that lead time. So occasionally, let's say you've got a multi-tier roof system. You can knock out roofs 1 and 3, but you can't do 2 until you get the materials. Well, rephase your work or do whatever you can, you know, to try to lessen that amount of delay. Now, there's one other thing I want to mention to you, and I want to throw, you know, a caution flag, because you can potentially get into trouble here, and that's with substitution of materials, okay? You might be able to resolve some of these lead time problems by substituting certain materials, okay? And I'll give you an example of 2 different times that I've done it successfully, okay? The first time, I had a roofing contractor that had a major residential job, and the residential job spec'd a tile roof system foam adhesive. We could not locate foam adhesive, couldn't get it. Could not find it, could not get it, can't get it, okay? So we suggested mechanically fastened. The owner and the consultant did not want that. Don't know why, didn't want it. So maybe it's aesthetics, I don't know. So I said, fine, okay? So we looked at the system and we said, look, we can't get you this tile roof that you want, but we can't get you a metal roof, and here's how it's going to look, and the price is pretty much the same, and we can get this done within the time frame you want. What do you think? And they said, fantastic. We executed a change order. Contractor's working right now, right? That is an example of using a substitution of an entire system, okay? So dust off those kettles because you never know, you might need them. Substituting a specific material. So you may have an adhesive that is spec'd or sealant or, whatever, okay? And you may have a comparable material that you can use, okay? But there's a couple of things that you really want to do. First thing that you want to do is you want to get the approval upstream from the consultant, the architect, the engineer, the owner. Okay, you want it in writing that they agree to this substitution. Second thing you want to do is you want to get the sign off on any manufacturer that is potentially affected by your use of this sealant or adhesive or whatever it is, right? The reason is that manufacturers love apples to apples. Once you do apples to oranges, that's a great way for them to deny their warranty because you didn't use brand A, adhesive or brand A underlayment or whatever it is, right? So get their approval, and you can go through the tech rep to do that, okay? Also, watch out because if this is like an FM or a UL job, there may be specific spec requirements for wind uplift and other things that you need to comply with, or code or local requirements, whatever the issue is. Cross your T's and dot your I's if you're going to substitute materials. But it is a great way where you can actually get some stuff done. So I'll give you the second example. In the contract, there was a substitution of materials provision that we were able to use. We were able to replace one of the components. It was a sealant. We got the required approval. We got the manufacturer sign off. It met all the spec requirements, and we're good to go. Okay. I was concerned that I would have to get an engineer to sign off on it, but we managed to get the sign off without it. Okay. And that's all I was looking for was the liability issue. Okay. I wanted to make sure that we were covered 25 ways from Sunday. Now, you may have to bring in an outside engineer or consultant to sign off on your substitution, but it's a lot better than waiting for 6 months and not getting material and then getting hit with a delay claim. Okay. Any questions there? All right. So here's another contract provision for you. This is a very basic material availability provision that I put together with the idea that you could use it in any residential or commercial contract. Now, I've got larger versions of this that go into much greater detail depending on, what contract I'm negotiating. But this basically just says what it says. It says, look, if I'm delayed because I can't get materials, you got to give me time, man. I'm not asking for money, but I'm asking for time. Okay, and this is something that most customers can understand. Keep in mind that contract provisions aren't just to protect you or to prosecute claims. They help educate the customer, right? And a lot of that it's about creating the appearance of fairness, even if it is in your favor. Okay, so that's something that I really recommend that you put in contracts moving forward, that you account for the fact that you can't get materials and that you should be able to get time in the event that there is a problem in getting those materials, okay? Let's talk about delay. We track everything that comes into this office. I've done that for the last couple of years, and I've got a stats person that tracks the suits that we file, the types of claims, the types of defenses, the manufacturers, the type of roof system, okay? And the reason I do that is I want to be able to track trends so that I can jump out ahead of them, right? So year over year, even with COVID, we are up 38% on delay claims, okay? And that's either prosecuting or defending, okay? That is a significant statistic because we've got a lot of litigation, right? We've got a lot of offices. So I rely on that. I don't believe in the news. I don't believe in stats that I hear on the news. I don't believe in any of that. I believe in what comes into this office, the phone calls that I get from contractors, and I know that this is an issue. So delay clauses may be able to help you submit a claim for an extension of time or a price increase, but you really have to parse through them carefully, okay? Watch out for what is known as a no damages for delay clause. Now, in Washington, what it will say is, contractor is entitled to additional time, but is not entitled to any additional cost associated with delay, okay? Now, I wouldn't be a good lawyer if I couldn't figure out a way around that. And I have tons of ways around that, but it is a roadblock that you have to deal with. So recognize it. If you're, reviewing contracts now, that's one of the things I look at. I want to see what can a contractor get, how can they get it, all that kind of stuff. Seek time for every aspect of your project. Okay, seek time for every single aspect of your project. If you have a rain day, don't just say, oh, it's raining. Submit a request for an extension of time for that one day. Okay, if the deck isn't ready, okay, if it's contractor's fault, submit a request for an extension of time based on that delay. When do you submit the request? Not when the delay is over, when the delay starts. Okay, and even if you don't know whether or not it's a true delay, submit it anyway, because worst case scenario is you just pushing out paper, right? If the HVAC contractor has delayed you 4 hours because they haven't lifted the HVAC units, right? You need to submit it. And the reason I'm telling you to do that is that unlike a couple of years ago, you may need that time. You may need every day of that time because of this materials issue. Let me tell you, this is a 301 level trick, okay? I have been very successful. And let me just take a step back, okay? I am not your academic lawyer, okay? I like to use law as a weapon. I like to use it from a business perspective. And my dad always told me that lawyer's job is to turn chicken doo-doo into chicken salad. That's how I view my role, right? So one of the things that I really try to do with this delay issue, with the lead time issue, is you want to look at your project, right? You want to look at your project and you want to see if there was any past delay in that project that pushed you in to this crisis, okay? I'll give you a real world example. We had a roofing contractor that was delayed in January and February. The project was delayed in January and February because the deck wasn't ready. So they weren't able to really start their work until late April, early May. Then they got into this issue, okay? So the argument that I made when we were requesting additional time is, but for that prior delay, my contractor would have had this thing done, had all the materials ordered, and you wouldn't have this delay. So it's really your fault, not mine, okay? It's a creative argument. Does it always win the day? No, but I'm just looking to get in the game, okay? So you need to be thinking about stuff like that. Don't just look at what's in front of your face. Look all around you, right? You got to have your head on a swivel for this issue. Again, I'll mention substitution of materials. That is a great way where you can potentially, work around materials that you can't get. The other thing I like to point out a lot of times is if you didn't spec the system, right, there is what's known as the implied warranty of availability. Okay, it is not recognized by most states. It is primarily used on public projects, but it sounds good. Okay, and what it is, a little known law that says that if the owner or the owner's consultant or rep or whatever spec a certain system or a certain product and you're unable to get that, then you are entitled to relief as a result. Okay. Now, again, that is a last ditch effort. Okay. That's, after you've used your gun and your knife and your fist, you're looking for a rock to throw. That's the rock. Okay. But it's something. Okay. And I have used that. Again, what I'm trying to do is bluff the other side enough to get negotiations going in my guy's favor. Okay. Let me talk to you a little bit about dealing with liquidated damages. Okay, LDs, they're commonly referred to as LDs. For those of you that don't know what liquidated damages are, what they are is, let's say a prime contract, it says the project will be completed by July 23rd, and for every day that's over that, the owner is entitled to $250 a day, or $1,000 a day, or something per day. Now, the key thing to remember here is not the money. So if let's say you are in the prime position, let's say you're a roofer that contracted directly with an owner, you may get that liquidated damages claim. If you're a sub, guess what flows downhill, right? You're going to get it from the prime, right? Don't focus on the dollars. Focus on the days. All you have to do to beat an LD claim is beat the days. If you beat the days, you beat the claim. It's a very technical argument, okay? So what you're looking for is you're looking for excusable delay. Is there delay you obtained the extension for? Is there a delay that was caused by others? Were you prevented from performing? Okay. Is there concurrent delay? Just because you couldn't get the materials, if the deck isn't ready anyway, you're not liable for that because somebody else is as well, right? So what you're trying to do is fight back the days. We had one contractor, 56 days of delay. I've been able to knock it back to 23. It's a lot better, right? Knocked it basically back in half. I'm looking to keep going, and I got a few other arguments, but that's the idea. This is why I was really hammering home that you've got to obtain an extension for every single day, including weather-related delay. Absolutely critical, right? Use the same contractual arguments that I identified before. It's an act of God, it's unforeseen, therefore I'm excused from performing, okay? But just because you're excused, keep in mind, you still got to follow the contract. So if you're required to submit an extension of time, you should have done that, okay? So there's still some issues there, but you can use a lot of the same arguments that I just made. And again, rework the schedule to the extent that you can maximize efficiency without, subjecting yourself to acceleration. And for those of you that don't know, acceleration is basically where you're forced to shrink your schedule, have crews work on the weekends, pay them overtime, all this other stuff. To the extent that you can avoid that and knock down the days, you're going to do yourself a favor, okay? Remember, in construction and in construction law, the party with the best paper wins the day, okay? So if you are papering the file, you are going to do yourself the best service there, right? And let me just take a step, we got a little bit of time. I'm just going to tell you about some of the ways that you can do that. There's the obvious ways, advocate in your change orders and your RFIs, but look for stuff that's not as obvious, right? Daily reports. Daily reports are a great way for you to at least contemporaneously identify what's on your mind at the time. So, if L&I comes out to your job, you want to make sure that your daily reports say, yeah, I did a safety audit today. I checked everybody looked great. We had a toolbox talk on heat exposure and illness and blah. That's a great way. You got some self-serving, statements in there. You should do the same thing with regard to delay, right? HVAC contractors preventing me from performing. The owner said that I couldn't have access to the job site today. Regardless of where that daily report goes, let's say it's just an internal document, it's something that you've got, right? And when I'm in arbitration or when I'm in court, it is about the documentation, really, okay? On average, we have 300 to 1,000 exhibits per case. And what it is email after daily report, after RFI, after change order that shows what happened on that project. So you need to backfill your issue administratively. Don't wait until you have a problem. It's too late, okay? Email. The more that you keep peppering the file with stuff that's good for you, then so be it. That's going to be good for you. Remember, if it's good for you, put it in writing. If it's bad for you, pick up the phone. Okay, text messages or writing. Don't wait till Saturday night after you're 6 beers in to text something. It's not good. Okay, I've had those produced in an arbitration. I can deal with them, but I don't like all those cuss words. So don't do that. Okay. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit about the economic outlook, and then I'll turn it over to you for questions. I mentioned at the onset that the shortages are here to stay. Okay, what I anticipate is it's going to be very similar to what you're experiencing now, probably through July and most of August. Okay, I think it's going to get worse from September to November. Okay, then I'm curious to see what happens in November, December, January. Historically, production is down through holidays, sickness, winter months, things like that. But I'm curious to see what happens as far as production. I anticipate that you will continue to see these problems, like I said, through into the second quarter. Okay, I think it will probably be this time next year before we start seeing some catch up, some of the lead time shrink. But it will be a very long time before manufacturing and distribution can catch up to the pent-up demand. So there is significant demand. Now that demand may change some, right? Saw some reports today talking about the Fed discussing interest rates. If interest rates go up, if inflation goes up, if that may have an impact on demand, right? There's always going to be the service work. There's always going to be the repairs. There's always going to be that stuff, but some of the new con may shrink, okay? And if that happens, then maybe that will alleviate some of the problem. That'll create other problems, but recognize and prepare and make sure that you are doing everything you can now to prepare. Make sure that you are ordering now and impress upon the customer the importance of doing so, but don't hoard materials, okay? Where I've had a lot of distribution telling me, suppliers tell me, we get a toilet paper situation with, membrane and other stuff. Don't hoard because, again, a lot of those materials have shelf lives, and the worst thing that you can do is burn through your cash and not have materials that you readily need for a job, right? So order once you have the contract signed, but I'm not a big fan of hoarding because I think you're just chewing through cash. We talked about storage. Storage is critical, but make sure that you've got the required insurance. Okay, you want to call your insurance agent and make sure that you have, if you're storing it on your site or in your yard or in your warehouse, make sure you've got the proper property coverage in order to protect you in the event that there's a loss. If it's on a job site, then consider builder's risk or some other policy that could potentially protect you. Because if those materials are destroyed, rarely does someone else say, oh yeah, I got it covered. I got that insurance policy for you. Rarely does that happen. So protect them yourselves, okay? We had one roofing contractor had a storm wipe out $600,000 in materials, okay? And no insurance. You don't want to be that person. Talk frequently. One of the great things about this association is the great group of people that belong to it, right? I've had a lot of great conversations with many of you. And I think having those communications and being open and honest, this is a time to be open and honest, right? There's no point in, supply or manufacturers or contractors, trying to, sugarcoat this. I just want to know what's going on so I can prepare the customer. And that's how I like to do it. So I think staying in touch with everybody in the food chain really helps. And please avoid bids and proposals that lock in prices without some kind of caveat. Okay, you don't want to, if you submit a bid now, and I've seen a lot of the main contractors, okay, a lot of the big, we've reviewed every single major contractor that's out there, GC, they will give you a quote that says that this quote is inclusive of any material, labor, or equipment escalation, okay, and the lead times in here are, they are already starting to contract around the provisions that I just told you, right? So recognize that if you are getting contracts now, you really need to pay attention to that. We have noticed in the reviews that we're doing, we've noticed more and more and more of these publicly traded, very sophisticated prime contractors taking this into account, okay? So you need to do the same thing. Make sure that you are negotiating, you're editing this stuff. Use that red line to the extent that you can to avoid locking yourself into those problems, okay? Recognize that this is a constantly changing and shifting environment that we're in now. I am constantly trying to get better every single day at negotiating these things. And we're using our institutional knowledge, our team's knowledge to figure out, what else can we do? How else can we go about doing it? Negotiating that extra consideration is very helpful because it makes it an easier pill to swallow. Another year or two on a workmanship warranty. Upgrading a package to something else, adding in some gutters or something extra. It may not end up being a one-to-one out of pocket for you. You may have to pay something for it, but it's going to be better than you having to stroke a check for the price increase. Okay. So what I want to do now is, my marketing would kick me if I didn't tell you this. So if you go to our shop, and you can go to our main site, cotneycl.com. We've got a ton of great stuff on there. I mentioned that we're not just legal, we're also consulting. On our consulting side, we've got tremendous estimating training. We received rave reviews. We've got 2 separate 10-hour courses. One's an intermediate, one is an advanced, and it's prepared by, John Kenny and his team. He's had 45 years of estimating experience. I also have several legal documents on there, including letters that you can give your customers, addendums that you can add to your contracts, regardless of whether you're a sub or a prime. And I've included a discount here. If you use this discount, if you're our call member, you will get a 10% off with that discount. So I see my marketing people smiling now. Now what I want to do is I want to turn it over to you guys, and I want to ask, what questions can I answer for you? Are there any questions that you've got for me? Again, I'm happy to answer anything that you got. Nothing, regardless of whether it's about this or something else. Let me hear what you got to say. Got to be something. Come on, guys. So I will say, if I don't see you, you know, I'm starting to get back on the road again. My goal is to get out there and see some of you here by the end of the year. I will be at IRE, and I know Tracy will be there as well. So if you are going to be there, make sure you stop by. We will have a booth. It will be near NRCA's. I know I'll be speaking. I've got a great panel discussion, actually on the latest on this issue. We're going to have several contractors. John Kenny and myself will be talking about it. So I hope to see you guys there, if not sooner. So thank you again, and feel free if you want to reach out offline. Don't forget your member benefit. If you call us, I'm happy to give you advice. It's part of your member benefit.
Thank you so much, Trent. I really appreciate it. That was incredibly interesting and kind of mind-blowing information about everything that we've got to think about these days. I know that I sent out to everybody the link that was in your PowerPoint. So hopefully they can read that article too about Biden and have that in their war chest for taking care of all of this. So if there's no questions, then we're gonna let everybody get back with their day. I want to thank Trent again for being with us and for all the great information. This was recorded, and it will go up on our YouTube channel probably in a week or so if you want to rewatch it. And then, you know, like you said, feel free to contact him, ask him any questions that you might have offline as well. So with that, I want to thank you all for attending.